Hey, y'all.
Happy Monday.
It's Monday.
Boys and girls, I've missed you.
I mean, we just spent the past several hours
Not
together.
you.
Oh.
You. Our peoples.
I thought you were saying that you had missed me, and
I miss you each and every week, but I also enjoy hanging out with a bunch of random internet friends, too.
I love my internet friends. Timmy, we had church yesterday.
We did. So did we.
It was Sunday.
It was. But I guess that means, if yesterday was Sunday.
Well, hang on. I just got to let you know that I had a major biff.
Oh, no.
And
you didn't text me.
I didn't, because we were going to Disney after church. It was a whole thing.
But normally, if you have a biff, I'm getting a text.
I had a biff.
Yes, CJ, the Jeep top is down.
Listen, yesterday was Sunday.
And this is the morning after.
Welcome to the Morning After Ministry Show, a caffeine-fueled look back on the week and ministry that was.
All right, boys, let's jump into it. It is Monday. We had just a glorious ministry weekend at Lakeview from a jam-packed, Frank, you were there. We had a jam-packed men's prayer breakfast. The food was good, dude.
It was a good time.
I like
love
food.
gravy.
Biscuits and gravy, scrambled eggs, sausage, pancakes. I mean, can you go wrong with any of those things? Andrew, I know you guys
I would say
well.
we eat all the time. Our
do.
men's group meets every Saturday morning, and we have a full-on commercial kitchen.
I didn't know that.
So they do pancakes, eggs, potatoes, sausage, scrambles.
That's impressive.
Each and every Saturday. So if you come in here on a Saturday, it smells like you're at a diner. It's wonderful.
Ben, the sun
It's
just
fantastic.
came out. It was very foggy this morning, but the sun has
we
broken
were
through.
sitting here recording Practically Pastoring and watching the fog. The fog was so thick you could actually see droplets.
It is 70 degrees and sunny here in Safety Harbor, Florida. I don't know what it's like across the country, but there's a reason people vacation here.
We had to drop the air down in here. It's actually getting a little bit cold now, but we had to drop the air because it was so foggy that the humidity was like fogging up my glasses inside.
Dylan just came in to drop a Duval. Look, you can't. I've heard everything. Okay, guys, I got 1,000 text messages. He pronounced it weird. There's a context behind this. I'm not going to get into it right now. We can fight about this later. The coach has said it right 100 times. In context, he was talking about everyone together, as in Duval, as in all of us, and everyone took it and ran with it. Whatever, it's fine. Just go win games. I don't care.
Listen,
just go win games.
That is going to be a soundbite, a GIF, a meme for as long as he's there.
And it doesn't matter if it's out of context. It doesn't matter.
But also,
and it was silly.
I have a $5 bet with my 11-year-old that the Jags will either A, win at least 10 games next year, or B, win the AFC South, because I think
you just became my best friend.
I mean,
if you weren't before, you are now.
I mean, I think Houston's taken a step back, and I think Liam Cohn, I hate the way that he left the Bucs, but I think a good quarterback mind with a good quarterback is a great thing, and a high draft pick. Come on. You guys.
Speaking of all over the country,
you guys need some O-line help.
If you're in the Scranton, PA area, City Lights Church says all the music stars were at the Grammys last night, so we were able to have church yesterday.
Thank goodness.
I don't know if you watched any of the Grammys. Andrew, I told you this earlier. It was such a weird night in my house because I now have basically 3 teenagers. Zoe's going to be 13 this year. And all 3 of them are like, hey, Dad, can we watch the Grammys tonight? My 2 younger ones could care less, but I had 3 teens. I'm like, is that the era that I'm in now?
The 2 teenagers that live at my house, if I asked them what are the Grammys, they would think I was referring to the Grandma's episodes of Bluey. I don't know that my...
And I'm now at the age where I said, okay, who's that? And then they start like quoting the
Dad.
lyrics to me. Yeah, like, how do you not know this artist? And like every ridiculous thing that happened on stage, Emily goes, Dad, that's just art.
I had to explain who Lizzo was
there's
to
no
my
reason
wife.
for her to be in her underwear. That's art.
She had no idea. And I said, Melissa, how do you not know Lizzo? She had the song of the summer of the past 3 summers.
How about our Tampa girl?
Oh yeah, that rapper.
Like then she gave the huge. Aaron is not a fan, but she gave the huge shout out to Tampa. She told all the music labels to get to Tampa, Florida. I'm like, that was kind of cool.
That is cool.
We live in Tampa.
I don't know who you're talking about.
All I know is that Taylor Swift gave the award for Best Country Album to Beyonce.
And your bingo cards are broken because nobody had that one. It's just weird. All right, fellas, it's time. I got to admit it.
Let's jump into it.
We had kind of a
What was your biff?
prolonged ministry week. We had our one of our bigger elders meetings of the year, kind of our first one of the year at the end of January, and then we do a big elder staff dinner at a restaurant that we can see from here. It's delicious. It was wonderful.
It's a great restaurant.
And with all of that, I had been with my elders for several hours. Tim, I did not coordinate communion.
No.
I completely biffed.
Were you too busy counting people?
No, Tim, because that's typically done, at a later part of the service.
As in, you didn't get the communion supplies out?
No, I don't do the communion supplies. The communion supplies are already out.
Okay.
I knew it was the first Sunday of the month. I sent out an email on Saturday.
It didn't get into your manuscript?
Because it's a different part of the service. I did not have an elder helping me serve.
Oh,
because what we do is we have the individual elements. We don't use the Jesus snack packs or Jesus Lunchables like Lakeview
those
does.
make it easy.
But so we have 3 different stations in the church where people can receive the elements, because we want people to actually be served the elements. And I stood up there to call for communion, and I made eye contact with one of my elders who was in the back of the room.
Hope you see me.
And
you see me.
Just said, help. I had completely biffed. We usually have this coordinated. Hey, this month you're taking this station.
Yeah.
My station is always, because we have 3 sections of
Your
seats.
station is always the longest line.
No.
Everyone loves going to
my
Andrew.
section is usually...
Put the bread in my mouth.
I am usually on stage.
They try to take the cup and...
giving communion to the band, which I gotta put their little things on their music stands while they're playing, while the other line is wrapping up, because we have people...
Or everyone just grabs it on their way in, and it's always in their hands and ready.
It's so weird. I think... I think if the early church saw your prepackaged rice wafer, they'd be like, what the heck is this? Although if they saw our Jesus shot glasses, they would also be confused by that.
City Light says, how about this one? Do communion every week and everyone will always be ready. Well, I'm not against it.
Listen,
I'm honestly not against weekly communion.
So
neither is the Bible.
I would say neither am I. Neither is the
as often as you do this. I mean,
often. I grew up at a church that was a once a quarter communion.
Okay, so you were also a Baptist.
An indie fundy Baptist. Yep. Yeah, I didn't think that was nearly enough.
It wasn't. However, I will say this: it was very special every time we did it because it was only you did not miss Communion Sunday. It was like, it's also sorry, we didn't call it communion. You did not miss the Lord's Supper.
But we also did it only Sunday evening.
What?
So So it was only Sunday evening, and I don't know if
you had to be this super Christian.
Yeah, you had to be very, very Christian to get communion. But so I had one elder scurry up, and that was a non-issue. And then before I went over to my station, I leaned over to Shirley and I said, "Hey," because one of our other elders was out of town, and I said, and they're usually the one that does the outside and back of the room thing, and so Shirley was rushing to tap one of the other elders.
Sure.
And then I looked up, and then Don had come over, and he did. I was like, okay, so I could have solved all of this with a 45-second conversation before church started.
Yeah.
Or during one of the first couple songs, being like, hey, my bad. But it was done. I hope nobody noticed. Now I'm going to be getting texts from people that are watching this or listening to it later saying, hey, I noticed. But for about...
Called it!
For about 12 seconds, I was sweating. I was...
So you're wondering if anybody noticed, but then people are totally going to notice. It's like the time I forgot someone's name when I was about to baptize them. And I didn't have my list in front of me, and I was like, "Oh, I think I was pretty smooth with that." And 3 people coming from the church were like, "You forgot her name, didn't you?" I'm like, "Dang it!" Yeah.
And you'll never forget her name ever again.
Dylan says Indian Rocks does once a month. Look, once a month.
We do once a month.
We do once a month. I'm okay with that. I think quarterly is too little.
Yeah, me too.
Weekly can become
mundane.
It can lose its. Yeah, it could lose the luster. I'm not against it, though. I've been a part of congregations that do it weekly, and I still felt that it was special every week. I like once a month, but I don't think it's a hill I'm going to die on. I'm okay here.
My only pushback to weekly will make it lose its luster is if preaching and singing
You're right.
lose its luster.
You're right. No, I think it's a great argument.
Then we got to maybe help the people be like, you choose to not let it lose its luster.
See,
Great point.
We do a call to worship every week, which is just almost like a separate devotional thought.
Yeah.
And I think if we were doing communion kind of at the beginning of the service in that way, I think that would make great sense.
I'm all right with that. I'd also be fine with like a little 2 or 3 sentence line of, hey, here at Lakeview Church we do communion weekly because, and then kind of explain why you do it. You don't it doesn't have to be long, but it could just be like a simple, that's why they do it every week. So
the only thing when I think of an issue with weekly communion, which is a very bad pragmatic issue,
it's a whole lot of juice,
is cost, right? Like especially if you're doing the prepackaged ones,
City Lights is wondering if we kiss our wives once a month or if we kiss them weekly. Well,
monthly,
hourly.
Andrew kisses his wife quarterly.
Indie fundy, baby.
It's on the calendar. It's great.
Listen,
just approve it.
Listen, Dylan, I've got a serious question. And Crossroads is Christian church. Christian church typically does weekly. Tim and I both came up at Harborside. They were weekly when you were there.
Yes,
as well.
Yep. Yeah, it's the only church I've been in that does weekly.
And it was I don't want to say it was not a. It was a moment in the service for, hey, here's a staff member that we're not going to let preach a 30-minute sermon, but we'll give them a 3-minute devotional thought. And
then it was like self-serve stations.
Okay.
Throughout the room.
We didn't have that when I was there, but
you would just
different times.
The room was very, very dark, and there were tiny lights to find your way to whatever communion station you were going to go to.
Like when you're walking up and down the aisle of an airline where they have, or an airplane where they have the lit floor.
Yeah.
Dylan had a baby. Oh, he didn't have a baby last week. His wife did, and I went and met her on Wednesday.
Yes, you did.
And I was just wondering if Eleanor is asking about me. Has she said anything since I've been gone?
Guys, I have a serious question for you.
I'm ready.
I'm hoping my wife is probably in the middle of homeschooling 4 out of 5 of our kids, and that's okay. She's going to come back to this episode because she wants me to ask this question. I want to ask this question, and it was brought up in service yesterday, and there was a moment where our mission team leader said, I don't even know if Stephanie knows about this yet. And so Stephanie's looking around the room, we've obviously talked about it. We haven't made a decision yet.
But she did know about it?
She did know about it.
I was going to say, because I knew about it.
But the way she acted, it was like she played into the moment, and it was kind of fun. But I have been asked to go on a mission trip, which... Nothing crazy. No. We've all been on mission trips.
It's a good ask.
I'm a big fan. I love seeing God at work all over the world. We have a missionary that we've been supporting who's actually a member at Lakeview. We've been supporting him for the better part of 15 years. He and I have a great relationship. It has been so cool watching God use Joseph, who's our missionary. He's one of the Lost Boys from South Sudan. If you don't know that story, go to YouTube, look up Lost Boys of South Sudan. It is wild, one of the craziest stories you'll ever hear. So he's one of the survivors. He's at Lakeview. He's a nurse. Part of his mission is he's got his own 501c3, and he is also a medical missionary, but a very specific medical missionary. He travels back to his home village that was raided and destroyed and pillaged, and where his entire family was murdered. He travels back to the village twice a year to deliver medical supplies and to set up shop and run a local clinic to care for his people. It is a cool ministry, unbelievably heroic and awesome. And if you knew this dude, that's his heart. He just wants to care for people. He loves the opportunity to care for his people. So we've done a few things for Joseph's Village over the years. We've put in a well. We've obviously supported Joseph each and every time he goes. And we recently... There was a big ask. Joseph said, we don't have a church. We've never had a church building. We want to build a church. We were trying to figure out how we're going to make this work. This was years in the making because wiring funds to South Sudan to build a church gets really dicey.
Yeah.
So
I would say.
We partnered with a church building agency. ICM, if you're familiar, they believe in building a church within walking distance of every people group in the world. So we partnered with ICM. They said, yeah, we'll take this project on, but you guys are going to have to fund most of the project. So we found some donors who are like, well, let's do this thing. So as of 3 weeks ago, the foundation has been laid. The walls are going up. They're weeks away from a roof, and they're about 2 months away from holding their first service
indoors
ever. ever. They do not have, here's the kicker, they do not have a permanent building in this village at all. Like that's how
CJ
primitive.
just said, so Frank is planting a church in Sudan.
It's South
Very
Sudan.
excited.
South Sudan. This will be the first permanent structure in the village. It'll be used as a community center. There'll be outreach. There'll be Joseph's medical.
Some clinic.
Some clinic will be happening there. And Joseph, from stage yesterday, said, I would love for Pastor Tim to be the first person to preach in the church on the day that it opens. What do you say to that?
How's your Sudanese?
There'll be an interpreter.
Okay.
What do you say to that?
I mean, you say...
How do you...
You make sure that when does your passport expire? Because you got your passport when we went to the DR.
So I'm in the process of renewing it right now.
Because I think your passport would be up in the next couple of months.
Yep. So I'm in the process of renewing
Or it's
it.
next year, 2026.
Yeah.
He's renewing it.
Okay.
Either way, I'm going to double check. So let's just say the passport's good.
Okay. I think you say yes. I mean,
Here's what you don't do. Let me just tell you what you don't do with your family in the room. So we had a family discussion last week, and I said, guys, it's not a big deal. And then I said, hey, Alexa, is it okay to travel to South Sudan?
yeah, don't do that.
And Alexa's first response was, please avoid traveling to South Sudan at all costs. It is one of the top 5 most dangerous locations on planet Earth right now. And then all your family just stares at you. Like what? So then I went to Siri to ask her the same thing. She said the same thing. And then this was before Sunday. Then Sunday happened where it was said on stage, we'd love for Pastor Tim to go.
And now you've got people writing checks saying, and Pastor Tim needs to go to South Sudan.
We'll put you in first class.
So you've got people that are giving you their airline miles. They're
True story. A member yesterday said, Pastor Tim, if you want to go, I'll pay for the entire thing for you to go. I didn't tell you that, Frank.
So you're running out of reasons to say no, minus the I don't want to be beheaded part.
So
Okay, one more caveat, and then you guys can chime in. The first phone conversation I had, the first conversation I had from to my wife.
First of all, I did not go to London by myself. My wife was with me in London.
Show the comment.
I went to Scotland by myself.
Stephanie says, coming from Andrew, who left his family for 2 weeks to ramp around London all by himself, his vote doesn't
Also,
count.
I was in Edinburgh, Scotland, where there's no ramps and a whole lot of stairs. So,
All right, I want you guys to chime in. We're going to hear from everybody, but I need you to hear this as well.
I'm ready.
I was 15 years old, so 15-year-old Tim.
Yep.
Stephanie was 14 years old. It was our very first phone conversation.
They had only had 3 kids at that point.
We were pregnant with our 4th. It was the first time we chatted on the phone. We had met the night before, okay? Mm-hmm. The night before. And I said, Stephanie, I just need you to know this. I am probably going to die on the mission field, and it will probably be at a young age. Again, 15-year-old Tim, I was a little crazy.
Few things impress the ladies.
I just thought, what a cool line.
Martyrdom.
She was like, okay.
Fox's Book of Martyrs and Tim.
I just wanted her to know that that's probably how I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And so then this trip comes up, and she's like, Tim, do you remember this conversation? Of course I remember this conversation.
How's your life insurance policy these days?
You already know how it is.
Okay.
All right, boys. I'm all ears. CJ says Tim's going to be the next machine gun preacher, which I still haven't seen, but I heard it was an awesome movie.
I haven't seen it.
I need to see it.
I think that like the dream, the idea, all that stuff is great and good. And I think there's actually something really beautiful about like the first person to preach it at it is the pastor of the church that's fundraising it and stuff like that. I also think that there is
Rick says you don't have to worry about the dying young part.
Dang.
Ouch, Rick. Ouch.
Because you're old.
I'm 37.
I do think there's a couple issues of wisdom. So like one is obviously you're going like when you go to Africa, you have to get a bunch of shots and medical stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not impossible, even though if the date is like at the end of March is what they were looking for.
Potentially.
I mean, I think you can get all this stuff within 2 months.
Yeah,
and
beginning of April.
Yeah. So
2 weeks. 2-week trip.
Okay. It's a 2-week trip you're gonna be on? Yeah.
Because the travel to get to the village is days.
Sure. So I'm sure that's not impossible, but there's all that stuff to consider. I do. How do I say this delicately? I'm concerned.
If you die, I can take over Lakeview.
No.
So there's a reason that Frank was hired when he was hired.
Yeah.
Everything's lining up.
No.
Wow.
My concern, and I'm saying this just like reading the newspaper. I don't know if international travel as an American is wise right now in the next 6 months of the beginning of the current presidency.
Okay.
I'm just nervous about what that like tariffs are going up, people are having beef with this country, and like I don't know. I mean, I don't currently know. I haven't read anything about like South Sudan and their relationship with the United States.
But
like
you will not be encouraged.
I know right now, like I there's Mexico's not stoked about us. Canada's not stoked about us, and those are our neighbors. And I don't know. I would prayerfully. I would pray a lot, and then like really. But also,
CJ says you can record a brief message. Just let them play that, then go if it ever becomes less dangerous.
Yeah, that's why.
Hey, church, I want you to know how much we love you. We think about you all the time. We pray for you. You guys should live there. It's not worth me visiting right now because I don't want to die. But if you guys ever get your act together, I would love to come and let you hear me preach. I don't know how well that message would be received.
Was a TV in the budget for
I have no clue.
Yeah,
it's going to be all solar. I know that.
What's the Wi-Fi?
They got a Starlink situation going on over there.
Yes, that's exactly what they bring in.
Tim, could you
take Stephanie?
Andrew and I go together?
I mean, listen,
that would make it
the
safer.
Sudanese love me. Also, it's kind of like that thing, you don't need to outrun the bear, you need to outrun the guy next to you. You could outrun me, but could you hire security?
My son asked that question.
I mean,
that was his point. Like, could we have security detail?
Yeah.
I don't know. That just seems extreme, right?
It does
crazy.
Seem extreme, but I mean, if you have security detail at church on a regular Sunday, obviously it's different, but...
I mean, they're volunteers, sure.
Sure, but there are people that's what they do.
It is. I mean, they're...
Wouldn't you feel like a prosperity preacher, like
yes.
traveling on a plane and bringing your own, like, hired security?
All right, here we go. Stephanie Miller's chiming in. Here's my fear. Our kids are young. They know I'm not comfortable with it. You die, they blame you for choosing the church in South Sudan over them and walk away from the church. Thank God.
Yeah, but he could die in a car accident.
That's heavy.
Way to lay it on thick, Stephanie.
He could die.
She's not playing.
So if he dies in a car accident on the way to visit somebody in a hospital, is that the same? Like you could die whenever you're gonna die.
But my choice was not the church in that scenario.
No.
Read Laura's comment.
The only person who would stand out more than Tim in South Sudan is Andrew.
It's quite true.
Laura, which is why he's coming with me.
Andrew's the private
Steph says not the same, Andrew.
I'm just saying, if I die, which, let's be real, it will probably be Big Mac related, but I would much rather lose my life for my kids to know that there are a few things on the planet that are worth me being separated from them for, and one of them is the church. Now, I don't want to be separated from my children for the church, but I would much rather die that way than, being in a mosh pit with Frank at some weird death metal Christian concert.
That's oddly specific.
Yeah. I'm just saying, you guys go to weird concerts together in sketchy neighborhoods.
And we missed last night because I forgot about it.
I'm just saying, there's other reasons. You could die at any minute.
So, Andrew,
CJ says there's a reason Paul never got married.
Andrew, it seems like you want Stephanie to be Elizabeth Elliot, and you want her to write a book and be like, "My husband loved Jesus."
Do you know who?
He got killed.
You know who Jim Elliott's freshman roommate at Moody was?
You?
Howard Hendricks from Dallas Seminary.
Oh,
one of my profs.
Cool.
Her book was a little weird when she started talking about Jim struggling because the natives didn't wear a lot of clothes.
Yeah.
Steph read the book and told me that part. I'm like, what?
That's how do you write that in a letter? My dearest wife.
It's in the letter.
I'm out serving the Lord.
It's in the letter.
But these women need to put some tops on. Also,
oh man,
I've had diarrhea for a month straight. Hope you're well. Love your husband of 3 months.
I love Andrew's Jim Elliott voice.
You know that's my Jim Elliott voice.
That's always been your Jim Elliott.
I've been
You've
doing
crafted that.
I've been doing Jim
workshopped it.
Elliott's at open mic nights for years.
It's awesome that you have a Jim Elliott voice. This is like you know what? I need to craft a voice for the infamous martyr.
I would say
Jim Elliott.
a voice of the martyrs. Yeah,
We are making martyrdom and laughing. This is like feels a
we are making martyrdom great again.
You
is what
have
we're
to
doing.
laugh about these things. Like how can you not?
Tim, what are you what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that Steph and I are going to have to be on the same page. Like there's no way we can be completely at odds here, and then I'm just like I'm going. Like that's not going to happen. Like we will have to have multiple
but
conversations.
She did once take a vow before God and these witnesses to love, honor, and what was that last thing? I wasn't at your wedding. We weren't friends yet. But
we will be on the same page with this. My kids might not be.
that's fine.
I don't
Next
know.
suggestion is to just let your kids be orphaned completely and take Stephanie with you.
I thought about saying, well, why doesn't she just? That would be, no, don't. See, but that's the thing.
It would be worse.
It
if she
would.
went.
Like, you would not take your wife on that trip.
No.
And then that begs the question, okay, well, then why would you go?
You'd be required to do a Disney cruise right after that.
Yeah.
She would need something a little bit more luxurious.
I mean, yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an ongoing discussion. Could be a running bit on the show for a couple of weeks until we hash this thing out.
What would be an acceptable loss? Like if you came back with
Like less, like one less arm.
yeah, like fingers. What?
I mean, I could lose
That's
an
a Stephanie
appendage.
question.
I could lose an appendage. Here we go, CJ. Tim, what advice would you give to Frank if the roles were reversed? I would say exactly what I just said. Frank, I'd want you and your wife to be on the same page with this. If that's, you guys have to have some heavy discussions over the next few days and weeks because obviously like we're going to have an answer at some point because you have to book flights and plane tickets. Stephanie says, if he's leaving for 2 weeks during the school year, I'll probably be dead when he gets back. If you know what it's like in my house in the middle of the school year, which is why I was not able to go with Andrew on his gallivanting around Europe for a month on end.
First of all, it was 15 days.
Because the middle of the school year is really tough. So good point. So to Stephanie's point, and I don't know that we've talked about this, it is a major sacrifice on her end because we split the roles. Like I do as much as I can when it comes to pick up and drop off and getting kids to places and to practices and games and scheduling. So
But we also say all the time that ministry is not a regular job. There are
You're right.
seasons.
You're right.
It
Andrew,
is
I hear
seasonal
you.
and cyclical. And sometimes those seasons mean that you need to go and risk your life in the South Sudan. Just think of the Instagram pictures, Tim.
That's what I told my son. I told Zoe. I mean, how
could you
great of a story would this
imagine
be? And she goes, Dad, but I'd rather you be alive than have a great story.
How great the pictures would be.
It'd be epic.
Andrew,
I
would
don't
you
know.
go?
Yeah, there we go. How about this? Let's just go a little round table. Andrew, would you go?
Probably.
Frank?
I'm calling Melissa.
Yeah. And my
Melissa, would you let Andrew go?
I mean,
However, no.
All right. So Andrew said he'd probably go if the offer was
if
extended.
it was in that scenario, if there had been a 15-year relationship with this village, and I would want some. You can't make assurances, but I would want some security commendations. Whether that is, hey, we're going to hire a local security company because I'm sure they exist over there, and
Can you trust him? I don't know.
I have no idea. I would want to. What are you doing, Frank?
He wants to make sure I'm not
I would say-
missing Easter.
oh, I
I'll
was
be
gonna say-
back before Easter, Frank.
See, Tim's already resigned to the fact that he's going.
Frank is
I will
literally
be
like, I
back.
better get my Easter sermon ready. I'll have it pre-written. You'll have the manuscript. If anything goes wrong, Easter will be covered.
I'm just thinking like because I'm the thing I'm probably more concerned about. I mean, I haven't read anything about how dangerous South Sudan is.
CJ, you're exactly right.
I'm worried about like what if he gets sick, like
True.
like malaria or
Yeah.
something like that. And so like I mean, this is stupid. Like, who's gonna preach Easter?
Listen,
Like,
here's the thing. If your father-in-law says you can't, I would say your father-in-law should go as your security because he'd keep you safe.
I mean, that's true.
That
Steph says, my dad says you can't go. Steph, what if he comes with me?
I
mean,
What does he do for a living that Stephanie says that's what he does?
he's retired now, right?
No, what she's, I mean, well, he still trains helicopter pilots. He was in aviation for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and still is, because he still trains their pilots. Laura says, when the missionary is traveling back there, he is doing something only he can do. Opening and dedicating the building is not something only Tim can do. I mean, that's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Sure.
CJ says, I've got to head out, but sounds to me like Andrew's trying to get Tim to go so he can have a friendship back. Get rid of Tim and you get a new friend in Frank. Genius. So this is Andrew's plot.
We could.
Andrew's plot all along is to get rid of me
everyone
so
needs to realize
Frank can take
Frank
over.
and I were friends first.
Nobody knows that part.
I introduced
Nobody
these two.
knows that part of the story. Everyone just thinks you're the third wheel now. Like, oh, Andrew's there too?
The Lord of them.
The lore of this relationship
And a
is
friend
interesting.
will not say never.
So, yes,
Copyright strike.
Steph says, and this is true, her dad was also ex-military and an Army sergeant, and he worked overseas on security detail.
That's what I'm saying.
In very, very remote, dangerous parts of the world. So I'll talk to Jimmy Britt. I'll get Jimmy to go with me.
Do you think that would make your wife more comfortable or more angry?
I mean, we can just ask her if she's here.
Like, Steph, what if your dad was going with him? And
We
was-
haven't had any good
I was-
bonding
like,
experiences in a long time.
And was strapped. Let's be real. If he's going, there's going to be a few.
He's gonna come. Her dad's gonna come back. Why'd you marry this wimp? He said that.
Okay, look,
he was crying the entire time.
The last time we had a bonding trip, it was hunting, and Steph and I were dating, and the rifle bit me. Well, at least the scope did, and I had to go get.
right above your eye.
I had to go get 10 stitches, and he had to cancel his hunting excursion because of me. So I don't even know if he'd be willing to go at this point. City Light says, here's a plan. Just come to Scranton.
I mean,
I'd love to.
speaking of dangerous places,
I'd bring my wife. We'd have a blast.
it would be an Electric City.
Boys, we're going to have to keep this discussion going. I think it's going to be a few weeks in the making. We'll keep you updated.
When do you need an answer?
Steph says, not a huge fan of losing my dad and my husband at the same time. Ouch, Stephanie.
That was so loud and very close to
That
my
one
ear.
hurt. Although we are allowed to go to Scranton. Like
I mean,
us
that's-
three?
City.
That's something.
I-
That's something. When do you think you need an answer?
Probably in the next 2 weeks.
Okay. And how do you think Joseph would take it if you couldn't go?
He'll be okay.
Okay.
He'll be okay. Either way. Joseph's still going to go. He's already got the trip planned. He's collecting medical supplies as we speak. So he's going to make it happen. He is working the dates around my schedule. So
Okay.
he has asked me, you tell me the dates, and that's when I'll plan my trip.
You don't think the prayer ministry at Lakeview could get a head start and start praying for your collective safety as you guys run this trip? And
Sure they could. They probably already are
Do you
doing
think
that.
that like a bigger conversation is making sure the missions department at Lakeview doesn't set expectations for the congregation to go on international trips without fighting whether or not the pastor and his wife are okay with it?
I mean,
I think that might be the next
that's
step.
a good conversation to have.
Yeah. Was it filtering the announcements on stage?
I feel like there's something happening there that I wasn't.
No, I'm just saying.
is
No,
there a story
it's
behind this?
because it was
Yes.
mentioned in
Yes.
service yesterday, and it has not
Yes.
been
Oh.
confirmed that it's
Yes.
actually happening.
Yeah, we want
Oh,
Tim
gotcha.
to
So
go.
we would love for Tim to go.
And now the whole congregation
Yeah,
is
but-
like, yeah, die for the Jesus.
But I every time, obviously very, very different. We have a close relationship with a little Bible college in Alaska that's mostly a native population up there. And
Alaska
every
Christian
time Keith Hamilton, the president of the school, is here, he's like, and Andrew, we would love to have you come up and be our pastor in residence for a week or so. And so every time people are like, Andrew, you going? I'm like, sure, at some point.
Yeah.
But
You should do
But I don't. I'm planning to. But I don't know that it's quite as dangerous of a place. Just Tim,
It's cold.
You could start your book. You could call it something like Dangerous Calling. I don't know. I don't know.
Already taken. That title is taken. Paul David Tripp.
You could call it. I don't know.
Radical.
Radical. Ooh, that'd be really
David
good.
Platt.
Okay.
Come on, guys.
To live as Christ. I think
Matt Chandler.
I was gonna say there's so many There's so many books you could get started on this trip.
How about you just write it for me?
I already write all your sermons, Tim. How much more do you want me to do? That's not true. I haven't written his sermons in at least a month.
2 months.
Hold on. Keep on this conversation. I want you to write your book called The Edge of the Spear.
The Edge of the Spear.
I thought it was the tip of the spear.
Tip of the spear.
Tip of the spear.
The conversation was ending, and I tried to find the title as fast as I could.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right, boys.
Yeah. I think it is an excellent opportunity and might make a huge lasting impact in how the church views missions, and might make a huge impact in how you view missions, and you might get killed, which would be very bad.
All right, we'll keep the conversation going, but I need to add this because I know I mentioned this on another podcast, but it's worth mentioning here because it happened yesterday.
Which was Sunday. Yeah.
I was approached by one of our younger attenders. He's been super busy with work, so I haven't got to chat with him in a while. And he had said, "Hey man, just wanted to," and he waited in line, like that thing that people do after church, and kind of wait in line.
There's a long queue to get to Pastor Tim.
Wait in line to talk to the pastor.
He's signing their books, sometimes signing the inside of their Bibles. Did you guys ever have that? Or is that just like the weird indie fundy camp that I went to?
No.
Sign people's Bibles.
People sign yes, that was a thing. That was absolutely a thing.
What in the world?
And he had said, "Hey Tim, I just want to check in on you." And he gave me the update on his business, and it was really awesome. But he's like, "I wanted to check in on you because I know you guys have been at 3 services since August. How have you been? Are you tired? Are you drained?" And I was like, honestly.
And then he offered you a vial of testosterone. He's like, "I got this."
Like, it's all right, man. I'm already covered in that area. And I thought it was a really sweet question for just your casual churchgoer to ask. And I was super appreciative. And I told him, look, there was a 2-month period in the fall where I was really drained, and it was really, really hard because my body physically and emotionally was not used to 3 services on a weekly basis, and it was a lot. I knew the end was in sight because that's when I got to bring up Frank, because Frank, you've been crushing it. You've been on staff now for just over a month. You've already preached several times, including in series last week, and so what I told this gentleman was having Frank has been huge for me.
He needs to be ready in all seasons, preaching in series and
out of series. So I thought, you know what a great moment to give a shout out to Frank, who I think it's in the show notes. Frank is crushing it. Have you successfully met with every small group leader now?
I only have 2 small group leaders left.
He made it his mission to meet with every small group leader, kind of get the ins and outs of where everyone's at before coming in and just blowing up our small group ministry. That's not true. He's not going to do that at all.
No.
He's actually just going to help lead and guide and really expand our small group area. You've already made a huge impact on our young adults. Which, have you guys decided what you're going to call yourselves? There was some weird...
How many of them do you think are going to go with Frank here in a year or so?
Hopefully all of them. So they're going to fall in love with Frank, which is great. And he's going to have a great core team of young, vibrant humans who are energetic and ready to plant this church.
A bunch of people with no experience.
I would say a bunch of people with no money.
No, I met with we started a home group, a small group, and
you guys met when?
Last night.
How'd it go?
Yeah, it was great.
Let's talk the week in ministry that was.
It was really encouraging. They were really sweet. They were actually I would say very mature, and they even wanting to be in this group. There were people who were like, "Hey, I've been wanting Lakeview to do something like this for years."
Yeah.
And I just commended them all, the fact that they stayed when they could have easily gone
for
to literally two mega churches down the road that have probably robust young adult ministries.
Absolutely.
They could have gone there and they
dedicated
stayed.
Young adult.
They could have come here to Safety Harbor.
They could have gone to Safety Harbor, the beacon of
young adult ministry.
All of Pinellas County.
We are hip.
Yeah. But it was really great. We had a big potato bar.
Ooh,
and so that was fun.
I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Was it at your house?
Huh?
Any beans?
Yeah.
Beans there.
Baked beans on a baked potato, delicious.
Did you show off your Lego room?
Pulled pork on baked potatoes, really good too.
Love that.
Lego room. They saw my Marvel collection. It was great.
The new Spider-Man poster?
They saw the Spider-Man poster.
Epic,
it was a really good time, and I'm excited about it. My thing is twofold. One, I don't want to I don't think Lakeview needs, nor do I want to help create a young adult service or
Sure.
another like the youth ministry for young
a
adults.
silo.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know philosophically if churches need that, and two, I don't think Lakeview needs that. I think what Lakeview needed
When your senior pastor is a half generation removed, it's different than if your senior pastor is 62 and is a grandparent to the young adults in the church.
Yeah, and even what they were saying, they were like, if you were to ask them why they're coming to Lakeview, they're like, we love the preaching, we love the community. There's something really awesome that's happening here. And so with that being said, it's like what they needed was a place where they can be in community with one another, and that's the point of home groups. I think the current gap is that there's a lot of like couples groups, but there's not a lot of opportunities for like a single person to be in a home group.
Which I think they were a little taken back by us calling them singles.
Yeah, that's a, and I even said that in the first meeting. It's like,
so what do we call someone who's not
unmarried
married?
young adults?
Like, is that the proper terminology?
A normal person.
Yeah. And I kind of stated that. Like, I think for example, young adult marrieds does not need to be called young adult marrieds. No. I think they could be just called couples home groups, and they just happen to be home groups with a lot of young kids.
Agreed.
Where this could be a young adult home group.
Yep.
And in the description of the group can be implied these are unmarried singles. I guess that's the same thing. Unmarried folks under the age of 35.
You could just call it the meat market.
No.
That is what we're trying to avoid, Andrew.
That's the big reason why I don't want to do a whole thing. Is like I do not want to create live action Tinder.
Yeah,
he's used that line several times, and it's great every single time. Every time it's funny.
Yeah, and I mean it's like a typical group right now. It's mostly women in the group. There's 2 guys that showed up, which is cool. There's 2 more than I thought was going to show up, and I've already upset 2 people. There's 2 people over the age of 35. They're like, there's nothing for me, and I'm like, I get it, man. Like I'm sorry. Like I wish there was something for you. I wish there was.
Frank's already making people mad.
Yeah.
Not surprised.
But I think what's needed is not like a singles group for people over the age of 35. I think there just needs to be home groups where if you're not married or if you're coming alone to a home group,
you're welcome to.
But we will be starting the Silver Singles ministry soon.
Silver Singles. I want you to tell that to the 37-year-old guy who's like single and he's like,
is that
I gotta join Silver Singles. That sounds like the worst dating site ever.
It is a dating site, and I married a couple at Lakeview who met on Silver Singles.
Wow.
Frank,
I didn't know that was real. Wow.
Silver Singles. It's a real dating site.
It's owned
and it's
by
also a new ministry
only.
coming soon to Lakeview.
Nice. I had a English teacher who was a member of the church I grew up in, and I think about her all the time now that I'm grading papers for college sophomores.
Yeah.
But she was widowed at like early 40s, and just was like, I'm good. I'm never marrying again. And she had this ministry where she would like reach out to the single women at whatever her life stage was. But by the time I was my 8th grade year was the year that she retired, so she was well into her 60s before I knew her. And so they had this group that they called themselves WDS, Widows, Divorcees, and Spinsters.
What? Spinsters.
And it was like what up? We're the we don't need no man group of. Wow. And not like that, but I mean, this is like at a very conservative, like fundamentalist Baptist church.
Wow.
And it was we recognize that we are a unique life stage, especially for a church with lots of people in in nuclear families, and that's not us. And so we're going to dive in. And it just always cracked me up that they were just they would go to these like crazy outings. And
I mean, ironically, Lakeview has a group of women who are widowed, divorced,
they do,
separated, whatever, single, and like it's much more of like this is a care group, as opposed to like weird spinsters group, whatever you call it. What does Jeff say?
Jeff, I love you. We miss you dearly. Jeff says, any recommendations for an executive pastor who just resigned from his church, asking for a friend? Good to see all your faces. Love you guys.
Would you like to go to South Sudan?
Speaking of
South Sudan with Tim.
Silver Singles, Jeff is the Silver Fox.
He is
Silver Fox.
He is
not
very, very not single,
but absolutely a Silver Fox.
I miss you, Jeff.
Jeff, we miss you. We love you.
Jeff, move to Florida. It's a wonderful place.
Sounds like your schedule just opened up.
The humidity's terrible, but
want to raise your own support and be my executive pastor?
Whoa, okay.
I mean, Frank's planting here.
They can do youth too.
Just think of it.
What a dynamite hire that would be.
Florida is the new Southern California. That's not true.
No. So we started a new series yesterday,
Which was Sunday.
We're going to be in Numbers for the next 2 months, which, as I was kind of outlining what the series is going to look like, I was like, is 2 months?
Jeff says Florida, America's tail. Some call us the armpit, but sure.
Kind of. I mean, for what it's worth, the panhandle is really the armpit.
It is.
We're more the amputated nub. I'm just saying, based on the...
What?
If the
Never ever heard of
panhandle...
Florida being called America's amputated nub. Should have been the title of the episode.
It should have. What were we thinking?
Next week.
Do you remember when we thought, man, I wonder if we're still going to have any juice left after recording Practically Pastoring First? So
We're getting loopy.
we are doing, we're in Numbers for the next 2 months. The in-between, I could send this to you.
Numbers. That's a bold
so
series.
The in-between, we're in the wilderness.
Good graphic.
I like that.
And I kind of had this idea for the past couple months, and I was fleshing it out, and we had a visitor who wanted to talk with me after the service, which is always scary because it was either really good or really bad.
You never know.
And then someone who is one of my favorite church members, and I did not expect the concept is, what do you do in the in between? Like, you've seen God's miracles because they were a year removed from the Exodus.
Sure.
But now you're waiting for God to do what He's going to do again. But now you're in the season of in between, and I had a widow and a widower both come up and be like, "That was exactly what I needed to hear this morning." And in my brain, I was thinking, "Oh, I thought I was writing this for the next career season or the next whatever."
That's cool.
And I told Melissa, I was like, that is not who I expected that to resonate with.
Which makes it even better.
Which is a huge.
And it wasn't, and that was not me.
Yeah, a colossal win. But
it's like the Holy Spirit is like working.
It's amazing how that works
I love that.
through an idiot like me. That's
Some would say a donkey.
Yes, it's almost like that's a part of Numbers. So we'll be getting into that in a couple of weeks. I'm very excited about that.
You just want to use vulgar language from stage.
I do. I'm going to use the King James just for that week.
That's all I would use.
Just for that week.
Here's a better translation I found.
The King
A more
James,
accurate translation.
Clears his throat.
And then we're going to just keep going for the just the beginning of Joshua, just until we invade Shittim. And then after that,
knew it was coming.
Then we'll stop in the Old Testament. But let me tell you, there's some ridiculous names you have to pronounce if you're reading through Numbers.
Say it fast.
Say
it fast. Say it confident, and no one will question.
No one will question. But if you pause even a little bit, you feel like an idiot.
Have some phlegm in your voice. And you're like, well, that's real Hebrew.
Yeah, my Hebrew is not the greatest. But
wow.
2 months in the book of Numbers, as I was
proud of you.
When I thought this was going to be maybe a month or something, then the more I outlined it, it's like, oh no, this is a fairly long series. I don't do the 13, 14-month series that you guys are doing.
Well, you have. You've done.
I did a 30-week series in the book of Acts, but how long did you do the book of Acts?
50.
Yeah, so 8 weeks for a book that most people read the one time when they're trying to do their Bible in a year, and that's the only time they ever visit the book.
I've read it once a year, every year for 6 years, Andrew.
Yeah, it's not one that you're probably preaching out of very much.
Well, I might now that I have manuscripts.
I would say now that you'll have 8 manuscripts that you can steal from me.
I mean, how about a summer series where we go through Numbers next year, Frank? I mean, I'm not opposed.
You could call it What's Your Number?
Well, In Between works because
also,
summer is an in-between season.
In Between crushes is the name.
In Between's great.
Also, What's Your Number? The name of Frank's singles small group. What's Your Number? With Frank Gill.
I miss Jeff Baucham's podcast.
Me too.
On the way out.
Yeah,
that was
what
so
it is,
good.
what it means.
Yeah, with his wife. That was so good.
It really was.
Jeff's probably gone, but that was a good podcast, Jeff.
It really was.
Seeing your name made me think, oh, that was a podcast I used to listen to.
Oh, back in the day.
The DYM Podcast Network.
Listen, here's the deal. It's
Yep.
afternoon.
I'm hungry.
We've been sitting in these seats for several hours.
I need to eat.
And Tim and I have decided to take Frank to a Mexican restaurant called Poblanos today.
Join us if you're
So
if
if
you're in the
you're
area.
in the countryside area, come to Poblanos. It's going to be great. I'll be having.
Andrew's buying. I'll tell you why when you get there.
I will be having a Speedy Gonzalez, and it'll be delicious.
Love it. Can't wait.
Hey, we'll see you next week.
All right. See you soon.
Frank, is next week when you're out?
Yes, I'll be gone next week.
Tim, we can be back in the original recording space.
In the original Morning After Ministry studio,
Or-
aka your office.
Frank.
While Frank can
can set the example,
boot
and
camp for church planners.
and
I
Tim,
am.
and Tim could just say, "Never mind, Andrew. Let's do it virtual this morning."
It's not going to happen. I would never do that to you.
You used to do it to me quite a bit, but
Never.
maybe you have to drop your daughter off at school, so you'll be in the area.
All right. Either way,
Hey,
we'll see you guys
We'll
next
see
week.
you next week. Bye.
See ya.